So, I wore a Corona bikini today. I have cherry juice all over me. Um, and all over the bikini. I'm probably going to stain this bikini. We'll see if it comes out. I still have some cherries left to pit. I pitted one colander, my big blue ones that I sprout the beans in. Anyway, I pitted one colander worth today and put them in the freezer bag in the freezer. And anyway, James will be having some garlic toast with some orange tomatoes on top, and jus pear, which is already going yellow, so I don't know how that's going to be. And I'm having an apple after I have my... This is cucumber juice mixed with that amped hydration powder, so it tastes like orange Tic Tacs, which is actually quite yummy if you like orange Tic Tacs. If you don't, well then you won't like this. But I think it's good. And I got James to try some the other day, and even he said it tasted good. And he doesn't like that amped hydration powder. So. It's good and healthy. Anyway. The reason why I wore the Corona bikini top. This is the only beer bikini top I have. I don't particularly like it, but I got it thinking it's funny, because there are always women in posters for beer wearing bikini tops, and I don't know. I thought it was funny. Anyway, I wore this because I wanted to talk about The Wild Crafting Brewer by Pascal Baudar. I don't know how to pronounce his last name. Baudar? I don't know. I'm not the person who's into languages. Like James, you probably look at it and go, And then he'd start telling me about how it's a French name or a whatever name and whatever. Anyway, creating unique drinks and boozy concoctions from nature's ingredients, primitive beers, country wines, herbal meads, natural sodas, and more. There's a lot of really interesting recipes in this book. And it's, he talks about hot and cold brewing. And cold infusions, sorts of things. And most of these things, it would be very tough to convince me to try a cold infusion of elderflower, white fir, pinyon pine, manzanita, and California juniper berries. I think that would taste terrible. But there's all sorts of things in here that I might want to try. Mugwort lemon beer may be interesting. Hoppy brown sugar beer, I think anybody would try that. Let's see what else we have there. I don't know what that some of these things I do want to try nettle beer. I've bookmarked that one. I just have to find myself a good stand of stinging nettle that I want to try to work on. But it has ginger root in there and sumac berries, dandelion leaves. Sounds really interesting. I don't know. Maybe disgusting. But, beer is going to be disgusting anyway, right? I mean, honestly.
It's awful.
It's awful. And so I also bookmarked a dandelion beer, which has lemongrass in it. I thought that was interesting. And, because I make some good recipes using beer. Why not try making interesting beer recipes? Like chili is good made with beer. There's, I made some, I don't know what that was. Some sort of, I've used beer in recipes. Beer is good for if you want to make a frothy kind of batter for deep frying. It's like you can use beer or you can use club soda, whichever you want. or baking soda, water. Anyway, so there's some things in here which are absolutely, like I have wanted to make elderberry wine for a long time, but I no longer have access to elderberries, so I'm gonna have to locate some. And here's the recipe, and my modern interpretation on page 186. So I guess he has a couple recipes here. So I might end up trying that. But there's a lot of things in here I can't imagine anybody would ever try. Like, I have to find the one that was absolutely revolting. Well, there's quite a few in here, but there's one in particular that I was like, nobody would try that. Unripe pine cone soda. I can't imagine anybody would want to drink that. Pine needle soda, no. Maybe that. Branch and twig soda. Nobody's going to try that recipe. Do you want to drink that?
I don't want the stuff in the public park, that's for sure. No place where there are dogs around.
Well, branch and twig, that just doesn't, if I want to drink some sort of a soda-ish thing, yeah, if you're interested. It is interesting. See, even James wanted to look through it.
Excuse me.
Just pick up some deadfall and stick it in a jar until it bubbles. Honestly, I don't think some of that. But I would totally recommend that book. Having said that, I haven't made any of the recipes yet, but I'm interested enough to try some. And have you ever come across a book that's about making beer out of crazy things like that?
So I guess kvass is kind of light beer.
Yeah, he talks about that earlier. If you flip back a little bit, or maybe it's later.
Yeah, it comes. No, 26 maybe.
I don't know. I think there's pretty much a whole
This
section.
one?
There we go. Yeah, that's it.
So just yeah.
So you can have some of this whenever you want. It's cucumber anti-hydration.
Yeah, see, like the Dutch use it, I think, a little bit differently. I've run across it in Russian novels.
Oh, really?
But I'm running across it used at least twice in a Agatha Christie novel. And I can't come to think of it. It must be something like a fruit punch, maybe. Is this thing set in the Caribbean? Punch with a punch, or a kick, or something.
Well, this is the first I had ever run across that.
Kvass?
Yeah.
Well, where did I first run across it? I think it's in The Cherry Orchard by Anton Chekhov, right? The guy who was on Star Trek.
Yeah. Well, I haven't read that.
No, I was actually acting in it.
Oh!
The Cherry Orchard.
Mm.
It's a pretty good
And
play.
how was that? Yeah, good.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good play. It's a weird play. It's just doesn't really go much anywhere. It's kind of about aristocrats losing out to capitalists. And it's got a idiot student, who's
If you don't drink some of this, I'm going to drink it all.
who hates the capitalist.
Because I actually like it.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so James was reading something. He kept reading me bits of it because he was so interested. Well, he was.
No, it's just about beaver and how
about
smart
beavers.
Like if there's an older beaver with no teeth, they'll chew stuff up for it and leave it for this older beaver. So it's
Nice,
kind of
eh?
like
Senior citizen care.
senior, yeah, old
Yeah.
age pension, kind of like.
Well, what was this book? It was something from the Yukon, you were saying?
It's about the Gwich'in, or Kutchin is another way of saying. Or
How do you
more
spell
old-fashioned.
that? Well,
Gwich'in would be something like GWICH and then apostrophe IN.
but I guess that's just an anglicization of
Well, that's closer to Kutchin, right?
yeah.
The apostrophe indicates you kind of do a glottal stop as you're saying the CH, so it would be something like Gwich'in, something like that. And it's weird because if you say Gwich'in and Gwich'in, it's a different word, right?
Oh,
It's that glottal stop is an important thing. It's called an adjective.
Mm.
So,
anyway. So he was reading about that, and it was talking about some beavers and how
well, they're trying to preserve the culture. There's a little bit of the language in there. So,
beaver people, which in culture,
Gwich'in culture.
and
So it's talking about
it talks
beaver.
about beavers.
So their word for beaver, I think, is tsi. And then their word, and it has a variety of different words, like big beavers, tsi chu, something like that. Right? So I'm trying to learn the vocabulary. And here's the weird one, she, that's grizzly bear. And then they came up, you can kind of tell that the grizzly bear is the first bear they encountered, because if I'm not mistaken, I think the Navajo name for big bear is something like shash or something like that. And I suspect it's related. I think the original, and then when they ran across black bears, they changed it a little bit, came up with the word shoe. These would be the Gwich'in. But maybe it's the other way around. Maybe the shoe to she. Anyway, yeah, the two languages, Navajo and Gwich'in. Navajo basically in New Mexico is related fairly closely to Gwich'in centered on the Yukon, northern Yukon. Some of the places that they are kind of semi-native to them are things like Aklavik, Inuvik, Tuktoyaktuk's a little bit out of their territory, but so it's way, way, way up there, almost on the Arctic.
Well, anyway, you were talking about beavers and how they might have a language or something like that?
Well, the natives seem to think that they have a language, it's just we can't understand it. And I'm going, yeah, it's just because we haven't put enough effort into it. I mean, dogs understand our languages better than we understand their. Not really a language, perhaps, but we understand growling and so on and so forth. But I think they'd have their stuff's probably pretty fine-tuned by comparison with what we understand.
But I guess beavers have lots of different, what do you call that? Intonations or something? What would you call it?
Yeah, it might be. I don't know. I don't know what all sounds they make. It's just people, I don't think, really have a clue how smart animals are. Like at least the natives, they're saying, when they run out of food, they'll go someplace else. But they'll always keep in mind where they've been before. They'll actually explore, like in the springtime, they'll explore different lakes and junk like that. And see what are good. They'll make a lake, of course, if they've just got a river to work with.
We're talking about beavers here?
Beavers, of course. They
Okay.
make a lake by slamming down the dam, right? Here's a fly and an ant going at it. It's weird.
That is weird.
They were literally going at it. I don't know if they were going over after the same food. See the fly on your foot?
Yeah, I know.
And the ant down there.
Now he's just watching
They were
it.
having a set to, exactly right.
And the fly's like, where'd he go?
Well, I think the fly realized he would not do well against an ant, or she. There we go. Let's go.
Yeah, that ant's
ants.
chasing him down.
See, I think it's this thing that is keeping the fly off of.
Weird. I've never seen that
I've
before.
never ever seen it. See,
Ant
the fly's
wins.
hanging around. No, not necessarily. The fly is here.
Well, I guess nobody
He's
has
waiting
the
for
food
the
yet,
ant to
so
leave.
yeah.
So don't step on him.
Fly might be sneakier than ant. He
Well,
might be able to get them.
ant's got a job. See,
He's
the
kind of
fly's
led him
coming
away
back.
from it. He's led the ant away.
No, it's this fly.
Yeah, I know, but he managed to get him over there, and now,
Well, I
like
think
maybe
the
he's...
ant's been told to go scout some stuff out.
whereas the flies already found us. No, the ant, who knows what sort of
I don't
signal
know.
that they've got. See, here comes another ant. I don't know if he's part of the same crew. I don't think he knows about it. Maybe not.
Anyway,
I think he's scouting
yeah,
around.
those two just talked to each other. I don't know what they had to say, but it was kind of cute.
Okay, see if they're going to confront the fly there. Yeah.
But apparently, you were also saying something about the witching,
Yeah, what about?
poking holes in the.
Yeah, you know, like they kind of would in the wintertime, in the lodges, their beaver, I guess, in the top or side or something like that, they'll have a breathing hole in the top, so it's a weak area.
Of the den?
The lodge.
Yeah.
And
What do you call it?
well, lodge, I guess, is the
Okay,
English
sorry,
term,
I
but
didn't
den could be just as easily used. Anyway, when they're walking by, they're fairly easy to recognize for an aficionado. They stick up kind of like a hump in the snow, and they'll just stick a beaver food in it, which is like a willow branch. Or
So
something
they
like
feed
that.
the beaver
Yeah, exactly
on the way
right.
by when they know they're having a hard time finding
Well,
food. Isn't that cute?
Well, in the wintertime, there's a chance. What they say in the book, you rarely see a thin beaver. Now, ever so occasionally, their food supply might get frozen up, right? So it's underwater.
Yeah.
It might get frozen up. And he says he figures they usually survive. And they'd know because they'd go into beaver lodges, and if they found emaciated bodies in there, then they'd know they starve. They were talking about other things. I think like muskrats starving in their little. They'd make little.
And apparently
dens or
beavers.
lodges.
I mean, you never really think about how they get the tree back into the water because that's incredible.
Yeah,
For
they
a
say
little tiny beaver.
they say they put the heavy end on their shoulder and lug it down to the
Heave-ho.
water.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
I don't know how they do it.
Yeah, well, they're pretty big. I mean, they're saying that the length of
Trees are big though that they take
I
down.
know.
I don't know how
The
they do
length
it.
of them is like 3 feet, but a big male is like 5 feet long. Well, that's not much shorter than you or I.
Well, that's a lot of tail though.
No, that's the body without the tail. They specified.
I cannot imagine a beaver that big. That seems ridiculous.
That's what they're saying. Like
Without
3
the
feet
tail.
without the tail. So 3 feet long is not that long. It's only as big as a meter.
That even is huge.
Well, it's big. You'd rarely see them up that close, right? They're going to look smaller.
I've
when
seen
they're
them up close. I went canoeing and seen
Yeah.
them right there. If you go canoeing in northern Alberta, you will see beaver. If you go into lakes where there are rivers where there are beavers,
Well,
or creeks, say the
they're
Bear
saying
Creek,
that's where.
beavers there.
Okay. There's the 5 is where a big male would top out, right? Top out. So you'd be seeing a lot
Okay.
of youngsters. And
Well, I've
stuff
never
like that.
seen that. That's humongous.
Well, and this is, I don't know. They got most of the stuff right. from
Well,
what
I
can
believe
tell.
it. If it comes from that book, that seems pretty interesting.
Well, it was compiled presumably by the natives for the natives. Junk like that. They're trying to preserve their stuff. So. The stuff they were talking about bears, there wasn't a lot of crazy, stupid stuff. They basically said, like especially grizzly bear, if it charges you, it usually gets, can you dig this 1.5 meters away? So that's 4.5 feet away. 1.5 meters is about the distance to the camera.
Okay, so what are you saying?
Well, they say when they charge you, you'd better stand still, because if you start running, they're gunning for you. If you stand still, usually they'll go. It'll be just a fake charge, right? So just keep that in mind. Like even with I guess
You know what?
brown bear will do it.
I cannot say how I will react if some giant grizzly bear is charging after me.
Yeah, well, you got to start thinking. Like it will keep charging if you run. You got to keep that in mind. They're like dogs in that way, right?
Well, it hasn't happened yet, but
Well, we keep going out in the wild. It will happen. It helps that we got the dogs. We're always yelling at them.
Mm-hmm.
Do this, that, and the other thing. Of course, most of the things where bears are at, we find boring. You know, there'll be meadows and things like
Yeah.
that. But even like Crip Lake, there's a patch in there where it's a berry patch, and you just know, like the bears probably know when people are cleared out.
Yeah.
You know, after the boat, before the boat
They
comes.
know where
after the
you
boat
are and
leaves.
stuff. You know, it's funny.
Mhm.
Like, I was just reading a hiking book done by a young man whose name sounded very Japanese, and I can't remember it right now. Anyway, I was reading it, and they were talking. He was writing about how in some places, on some hiking trails, they don't allow, especially in the backcountry hikes, they don't allow dogs on the trails, and that's common for dogs to not be allowed on backcountry trails.
Mm.
But they were saying because they'll attract bears. But you know what? I lived in northern Alberta, and everybody on a farm, and farms are scattered. You have nobody near you, and you know there's bears all around you. And everyone has dogs. And you know what? The dogs keep the bears away. They do.
Well, that's where there are many grizzlies up there.
I suppose
That'd be
mostly
the brown bear, black bears, sorry. But yeah, black bears are small enough. I don't know about grizzly. Grizzlies like hunting for stuff like that.
I don't
So
know.
they hunt
Sometimes
for
we'd
ground
have some
squirrels and something.
bears in the yard, but usually not. Usually not bears in the yard. They'd stay to the bush.
I don't think a bear, you know, like if you got a typical, not junkyard dog, but a barnyard dog, up against a bear, they used to use the dogs for bear baiting, right? So there'd be a variety of them. A bear doesn't know how many dogs there are necessarily, right?
Yeah.
You'd have to be pretty hungry to want to tangle. You know, animals, there's no stake in them walking around with wounds and all that sort of
Well,
stuff.
they're curious. Animals.
No, they'd be
all sorts
curious,
of
but
animals
as soon
are
as they heard something barking and making a fuss, I think they'd be gone.
Mm-hmm.
The people up there know, you know. So,
Anyway, I have. I realize that when I'm out hiking, the bears know I'm there. They can smell me, and they know exactly where I am. They have a great sense of smell, an excellent sense of smell. Even if I didn't make much noise at all, they would know I'm there. So, I feel quite certain that every time we're out on a hike, some bears scoped us out and went, oh yeah, there's some people.
pretty well every time.
Pretty much.
I don't know how many were. There was definitely that one that was eating berries over on the Vimy Ridge route. It was berry season, and he'd left his poops several different days worth of it. And I think one was pretty fresh, and he'd been down to the creek behind us, actually. And then you passed right by him. And I think by the time I came by, he'd already cleared out, you know. Now, I think he was still eating fruit. It's possible he was actually telling you to get lost with all the noise he was making. I was reading afterwards, and that maybe sounded, I didn't hear it, but some of what you described sounded like some of the noises they make to get rid of people. So
Yeah. It's not happy finding. Like, if you find a bear bum print in the grass, and then you hear a bunch of crashing about, and you're like nowhere near anybody or your truck, that's terrifying.
that wasn't Grand Prairie.
Yeah.
That would have been a black bear. But even so, you never can tell. Like an adolescent bear would probably be as unpredictable as an adolescent human being. And that's not comforting.
But I'm not scared of bears.
Let me put it this way, I'm really respectful to the
I'm very
border
respectful.
edge of being scared of them. Grizzlies.
Way more scared of cougars.
Well, I'm scared and I'd watch out for those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Every so occasionally I check back a path we've been going, just in case one's stalking. It helps again that I've got the dogs. We've got the dogs.
Mm-hmm.
The more critters they've got to tangle with, less likely to end.
Yeah, you want more people in your hiking party as possible.
They say something like a bear and there's never been a bear attack for, I think it's 7 people and more. It might be 6 and more, I'm not sure. But once you reach a certain critical limit, it doesn't matter what they're defending. Like if they were defending cubs, I think they'd try and get away. Even a grizzly. So that's pretty amazing. But there's surprisingly few bear attacks. You read about them, but they're all together like in a book or something like that. They might mention a dozen in the space of 200 pages, and this is from all over North America, basically. You go, well, like lightning hits killing people are more frequent. Traffic fatalities are way higher.
I worry every day I'm walking around town. If I'm going on urban hiking, I worry about my safety. I think some guy in a black pickup truck or some woman in a off-white SUV is totally going to pick me off on a crosswalk.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
The guy might
I don't
almost
worry
do it
about the
half
bears so
intentionally. The woman, well, just will be on the phone or something.
She'll be looking the other way, pretending she doesn't see you.
Yeah. Good. Yeah, I've had one guy actually speed up on me in a crosswalk. He was just telling me to get lost. Basically, that's a threat of assault. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, he was committing a felony. I mean, he matted it. It was obvious. I mean, it basically was threatening murder. I mean, if someone hits you 50, you're in trouble. But he was going over 50. So.
Anyway, I hope our deck dinner was entertaining for you. It was delicious.